Let's start with the Redskins, guys. They're 3-6 again. Why does this year's 3-6 feel different than last year's, LeVar?
I don't know why 3-6 would ever feel different. If you've got 3 wins and 6 losses, it feels the same to me. You're a losing team. So whether they're able to, and I know the question derives from whether they're going to be able to run 7 games in a row again this year, but just looking at it at face value, answering the question, 3-6, when you're 3-6, it doesn't feel different. You're a team that doesn't know how to win. And I think that until they show that they can win and win on a more consistent basis, I don't think it feels any different.
Well, I think what John means maybe is that some fans were probably less optimistic now than they were last year at this time. I think the reason for that is because through it all last year, through that 3-6 start, RG3 still seemed sort of superhuman. And the one of those late losses before they got to 3-6 was at Pittsburgh, where there were like 11 drops or whatever, and you didn't really hold that against him. And you sort of had the feeling, no matter what happens, this kid could win any football game for us. I think that's what it felt like last year. I don't know that it feels the same way this year for obvious reasons, because he's turned the ball over a lot more. He hasn't been quite as explosive with his legs. So to me, that's really the big difference. Is last year you sort of thought this kid can bail us out of any football game, and this year it just doesn't feel quite the same.
And the defense is playing worse this year as well than it was last year even. I mean,
probably comparable.
They're close, maybe not as far off. But, I mean, it's hard to pin the blame on the offense for the team's struggles.
But
this far
I would
through
say
the season.
on the reverse, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but if anything, the division seems worse this year than last year. And so that should maybe counteract that a little bit.
But they are playing some better teams down the stretch than what they did last season as well. So you got Kansas City on that list. You got San Francisco that's on that list. The Giants don't look now, but they've put 3 games in a row. Maybe they're this year's Washington Redskins team. And then all of a sudden we had the Eagles, and they've caught fire. They've found a way to rejuvenate and kind of revitalize their season.
I think the jury's out on the Eagles. I mean, they've won 2 in a row.
You go to Green Bay and you're not facing Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah,
can I just say one other thing about the last year, this year thing? I mean, I know that it's easy to look back now and say, oh, that was like inevitable that they were going on that run. I know someone like Jason Reed and Tony Kornheiser both sort of predicted that. But at the same time, I think most Redskins fans were not thinking that was going to happen last year. The fact that it did happen sort of makes you misremember it. But I know I sat here in the same room and said, this team can't win 2 games in a row. Why in the world are we talking about them winning 4 or 5 in a row? So the NFL is so unpredictable. No one saw the Ravens as a Super Bowl winner last year at this time.
That's very true.
Their remaining schedule, you touched on it already, LeVar, is more difficult, at least winning percentage-wise, against the opponents than Dallas's and Philly's the rest of the way. But they still have 3 games left against the NFC, or 4 games left against the NFC East.
That's right.
So, I mean, there's still a lot of ways they can sort of move up in that stats. They're still just a game and a half behind both Dallas and Philly.
I just don't think that there's any reason to feel any differently. I think we thought the season was over when they were 3-6 last year.
Yep. Shanahan certainly did.
I know Jay Reed and those guys, as Dan stated, felt like they could run off the table, and that's fine. But for the most part, the season probably was over. So until they prove something different, I don't see why we should look at it any differently.
And the historical record is definitely against it. I think the other interesting wrinkle this year, I don't know if we need to move on, but the other thing is there's going to be a lot more Mike Shanahan contract talk because they weren't firing him after 3 years no matter what happened last year. But this year, it's going to get interesting. Do you let him be a lame duck? Do you give him a contract extension? Do you make a call that he needs to finish strong this year to bring him back at all? I think that if they don't run off a couple wins in a row, we've got 5 or 6 weeks of coach talk in front of us.
We've talked about that leading up to in the past month or so. We'll have plenty of that ahead as the season progresses.